What happens when one of TV's biggest power players finally snaps? For over a decade, Simon Cowell and David Walliams ruled primetime as the dynamic duo behind Britain's Got Talent. But behind the scenes, a storm was brewing, filled with ego, betrayal, and a scandal no one saw coming. Now, the mask has slipped. Simon Cowell loses control after David Walliams pushes him too far, and everything unravels. From 2012 to 2022, Britain's Got Talent was more than a show. It was a phenomenon. At its center, Simon Cowell, the sharp-tongued mogul, and David Walliams, the wild and witty comic. Their chemistry was electric, their dynamic unforgettable. Simon brought authority. David brought chaos. Together, they created magic. Audiences tuned in for the talent, but stayed for the sparks. The playful tension, the biting humor, it all felt spontaneous, but something deeper simmered beneath. Every joke, every glare hinted at a growing rift. Simon was the cold strategist, obsessed with perfection. David was the free spirit, turning each moment into unpredictable comedy. Their contrast made for great TV, but also masked the strain building behind the scenes. Off-camera, cracks formed. What seemed like a partnership was actually a power imbalance. Simon, ever the empire builder, saw BGT as his legacy. Nothing happened without his say. In his world, control was everything. David saw things differently. Britain's Got Talent was just another stop in a colorful career, not his crown jewel. And that difference? It was the beginning of the end. David Walliams wore many hats: comedian, writer, actor, and judge. But while he brought humor and flair to Britain's Got Talent, his heart was never fully in Simon Cowell's vision. For Simon, the show was legacy. For David, it was just another creative outlet. It was a setup for inevitable friction. Simon demanded loyalty. David offered independence. He wasn't there to fit a mold. He was there to be himself. That mismatch sparked tension. Glances, dismissive remarks, and subtle snubs turned into a quiet standoff. To Simon, BGT was his empire's crown jewel. To David, it was one gig among many. What once felt like a lively collaboration became a clash of egos. Simon pushed control. David resisted. The tension never exploded, but it never went away. With each season, the unease grew. The show that once celebrated talent became a stage for behind-the-scenes power struggles. The chemistry was fading. Could it survive another season? Or was the golden duo crumbling? Then came the scandal. January 2020, London Palladium. Filming paused. The set fell quiet, but the mics were still hot. And David Walliams, thinking he was off-air, made crude, offensive remarks about contestants, words never meant to be heard, but now impossible to ignore. The comments were vulgar and objectifying, starkly at odds with his on-screen persona. For 2 years, the recordings remained buried, until suddenly, they leaked. The fallout was explosive. Simon Cowell reportedly lost it. The scandal consumed headlines. Fans and media tore into Walliams, condemning his words and professionalism. The once beloved judge was now at the center of a media firestorm. Walliams issued a public apology. His team scrambled to control the damage. But the deeper wound was the betrayal. How the audio was leaked in the first place. This wasn't just a misstep, it was sabotage. Someone inside the production chose to expose him. It shattered trust, casting a long shadow over the show. Walliams had to face not just public backlash, but the unraveling of relationships behind the scenes. Britain's Got Talent would never be the same. Public trust, once abundant, was now tainted. Fans who once celebrated David Walliams for his wit and charm began to question his character. His reputation was under siege, and the battle to reclaim it looked grim. Then came the lawsuit that rocked the industry. In the wake of the leak, Walliams filed a suit against Fremantle Media, the production company behind Britain's Got Talent, for breach of privacy. This wasn't just a PR issue. It was about trust, broken, violated, and exposed. Private conversations had been made public without consent, sending shockwaves through the TV world. If backstage moments could be leaked, what did that mean for the future of production? Walliams' legal fight became symbolic, a stand for dignity, not just his own, but for everyone working behind the scenes. The lawsuit dragged on, gaining industry-wide attention. Fremantle, once untouchable, scrambled to contain the damage. They eventually issued an apology, but the harm to their image and to Walliams was done. By November 2023, the case was quietly settled. The terms were sealed, but the verdict in the court of public opinion was clear. Fremantle had failed to protect one of their own. Walliams had some legal closure, but the personal cost ran deeper. His once strong partnership with Simon Cowell dissolved into silence. The duo who had defined BGT now barely acknowledged each other. The bond was broken. Neither spoke publicly, but the shift was obvious. Cowell, once a vocal supporter, now kept his distance. Whether it was personal disappointment or strategic detachment, the silence between them said everything. Britain's Got Talent, once a symbol of star power and synergy, now stood in the shadow of scandal and fractured friendships. Walliams, once the heart of the show's humor, now carried a legacy stained by controversy. Then came the moment that confirmed the rift. April 1st, 2025, during an Advertising Week Europe panel, Walliams took the stage with his usual charm, but there was an edge to his smile. When the moderator praised his BGT career, he quipped, "I've won Best Judge 4 times, you know. Simon? Well, Simon never won." Laughter followed, but it was uneasy. The joke felt too sharp, too deliberate. The jab wasn't playful, it was pointed. In that moment, the rivalry turned real. Walliams, with one line, cut to the core of Cowell's pride. The title of Best Judge, which Cowell had never claimed, was no longer just an accolade, it was a weapon. Their friendly banter was gone. The masks were off. What had once been a dynamic of contrast, stern versus silly, was now exposed as a bitter divide. The tension, long hidden beneath smiles and scripted lines, had finally erupted in plain sight. Walliams' remark at the Advertising Week Europe panel was a public declaration that Simon Cowell had lost, at least in Walliams' eyes. The fallout was swift and far-reaching. Rumors spread like wildfire through the entertainment industry. Sources claimed that Cowell and Walliams hadn't spoken in years. The once genuine camaraderie between them had turned into silent animosity. Every attempt to patch things up was met with indifference. Walliams retreated, while Cowell, trying to bridge the gap, found himself shut out. Public appearances were carefully avoided. Where once they'd been inseparable, now they were ghosts to each other. Insiders whispered about the fractured relationship, which had become too obvious to ignore. The idea of them working together again seemed laughable. They were done. It wasn't said in anger, but with a resigned sense of finality. The bond that had defined Britain's Got Talent was no more. What had once been an unbreakable partnership had dissolved into irreparable silence. Walliams' words had pierced the heart of Cowell's empire, striking where it hurt most. The jab about Cowell never winning Best Judge wasn't just a critique. It was an assault on Cowell's identity. For years, Simon had built his brand on ruthless judging and unmatched influence. Yet, in one sentence, Walliams had shattered the illusion that Cowell's reign was invincible. It wasn't just about awards, it was about legacy. The comment questioned Cowell's place at the top, forcing the industry to reconsider his dominance. Executives, sponsors, and international partners began to doubt, was Cowell's era over? The damage was done. Walliams had planted seeds of doubt in Cowell's mind, but it went deeper. The final straw came in a private production meeting where the tension reached a boiling point. Cowell found himself surrounded by loyal allies, but even their support couldn't stop the storm. In that moment, there were no more rehearsed statements, no more politeness. The pressure of years of unresolved conflict finally exploded. For the first time, Simon Cowell let down his mask. Gone were the carefully crafted PR scripts. What followed was raw, unfiltered truth. Years of restraint collapsed in moments. The polished mogul, the titan who built global empires with just a look, was unraveling. Chairs were knocked, papers swept off the table. For Simon Cowell, a man known for control, this was chaos. It wasn't just anger, it was betrayal. A grief for something that had died years ago, now decaying in public. Surrounded by his team, Cowell calmly declared, "We are done." It wasn't frustration. It was acceptance. An era had ended. Walliams, the catalyst, had fractured their bond long ago. Now, the future of Britain's Got Talent was uncertain. Walliams was gone, and Cowell's world had been shaken. Walliams moved on to new projects, but the feud lingered. The playful judge was replaced by a more calculated, world-weary version. Cowell continued, but the cracks in his empire were evident. The king was now a man with a tarnished crown. The partnership was over. No more appearances, no more banter, only silence. The curtain had fallen. As it did, the world echoed with one phrase: "We are done." What truly ended their partnership? Was it the scandal, egos, or something deeper? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.